Hi Christmas loving friends, here's a video. Today we're making extremely budget-friendly Christmas decorations using only things that you've probably already got in your house. I've put these projects in a vague order of skill level, so starting with the easiest and moving on to the more tricky ones, though none of these DIYs is particularly difficult. Each project starts with a green title card, so if you're going to be skipping through the video, please look out for those green slides to see where a new project starts. The timestamps for each project are also in the description box, so feel free to use those too. One final note is that I've made, in my mind at least, very base level projects, so there's heaps of room for you to vary them, add to them, and what have you. I didn't want to limit your creativity, but rather to provide a foundation for you to experiment and play around a bit however you want to. Right, that's all. Let's hop to it. Here are the supplies for all of the projects that you'll see in this video. Starting off with a really simple paper ornament here. You can make these in a variety of shapes. I'm going to be making circles today. So you start with 10 pieces of paper roughly, fold them in half, and then along the fold line cut out some semicircles or half of whatever shape you want to make. Then make sure that on the fold line you can easily fold the paper backwards and forwards. That's going to be super important in making sure that your final ornament folds out nicely. Here I'm wrapping some string around the center. You can also use staples if you like. You just want to keep it in like a little booklet so that it doesn't fall apart. The next step is going to be to glue these individual half circles to each other. So you can do that in whatever pattern that you like. I'm just doing a bead of glue at the top and then sticking those two folds together, and then on the next fold I will do a bead on the opposite side. I hope that made sense, guys. Verbal explanations of things are not my forte, but what I can offer you is some cheesy royalty-free YouTube Christmas music while you watch me do this. Wow, that didn't last long. Oh, I'm efficient. Alright, so when you fold it out, you see that pattern there. And then we just keep folding all the way around to the back. The last two flaps, the front one and the back one. We glue those together. And then you'll have a full sphere that's going to look pretty. You can see the pattern there. It's lovely. You are, of course, at liberty to make coloured ones with colourful Christmas paper or whatever you have. Simple and easy. Just like your parents had back in the 60s. Alright, next up we have a faux gingerbread house made of cardboard. So you can use anything, any kind of cardboard. We're going to cut first, then we're going to draw. Good grief, this is moving quickly. Alright, you can see what we're doing. We're just cutting out shapes, windows, doors, etc. Okay, and then around the windows we are just going to put a hot glue border. And this is going to be faux icing. So we're going to paint this later, but we just want to make a nice little textured area just around those openings, and also to conceal the messiness of the cardboard that you can see there. So yeah, lots of fun. And if you get little glue stringies, don't worry about that. We can pull those out. Okay, so now assembling the gingerbread house, as you can see, just with little lines of glue. Then we put the roof on. Okay, and this part, we're running the hot glue down the seams, so all the places where we've joined cardboard together, and also on the bottom of the roof there and on the roof line, just on the seams, that faux icing. Here's another little one I made. Make in whatever shape and size you like. Okay, painting is next. So with white paint, we're going to paint along all of the hot glue lines to make the white icing. My daughter painted this little one. And here you go, this is what it looks like. Now another option is to use some multi-purpose filler or joint compound, and you can smooth that over the cardboard and you'll get more of a modern organic sort of natural vibe to your house. And that can be quite a cool look too. So finish them however you like to suit your unique style. So on the theme of little houses and using up the cardboard boxes that all the parcels that you order online get delivered in, we are making a little backdrop town. So this was a big long box I got, and I just marked out a little town shape, cut that out, and here I'm just drawing the windows and doors that I want to cut out. You could do this similarly to the gingerbread house, where you line the windows and all the seams with hot glue and paint it to look like gingerbread. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be using the multi-purpose interior filler to make this look more like that more modern organic style. So I've cut out all the shapes, and you'll see me now applying that filler just to the inside seams where you can see the serrated cardboard on the inside. So I want to cover all that up so it looks like one single piece. So I'm doing that on the top as well. And in a minute you'll see my daughters helping me as well with this process. Now another thing you could do is just make this out of paper and wrap it around the base of a candle. It's just a really nice way to add a bit of Christmassy vibe to anything. Okay, so here we're painting over that filler once it's dried, and then it's ready to display, and you can see how I've done that here. It's just house central on this table apparently. This next project is a favorite of mine. It's for those people who like the look of tinsel but not the shine of it, and who like having garlands, but it becomes expensive having to buy lots of garlands. So we're just cutting up some fabric, we're going to use some wool, and we're going to make a big long garland of fabric tinsel, so to speak. So all that it involves is just tying your scraps of fabric in a knot, like a little bow, just one knot, that's enough, onto the string or wool or whatever you're using, and then just repeat that process for as many times as you want to get the length that you desire. This is also so good because you can use this year in and year out, over and over again. So I've used a plaid fabric here because I love plaid. And it's going to be so versatile because it's a neutral color. So you can see as I'm tying these little bows, because my pieces are quite short, I'm twisting them around first just to make it easier to handle them, to tie them into knots. But you can use longer pieces, you can use a mix of short pieces and long pieces. Also, you can tie the bows directly onto the Christmas tree if you wanted. That's actually a tissue, that one right there, the Budget Life. And here's what the fabric tinsel looks like once it's done. So you can use that on your Christmas tree, or you can use it as a hanging garland or a table runner. Here's a brown one that I made as well. You can see them on the tree there. And I'll show you another, there it is as a runner. There you go, like I said. And here's one I made a long time ago for my girls' room with lots of different lengths and fabric. So with the fabric tinsel fresh in our minds, we're going to make a wreath. And we are starting with our trusty low budget friend, the wire clothes hanger. So you can see how I'm just bending this into a circle shape. And then we don't have pliers. This is a budget video. We're just going to get that neck and wind it around. That made sense. Okay, so here's a garland that I made just with fabrics, different shades of green, because this is for a wreath, and I'm just wrapping it around the wire. The reason I didn't directly tie the fabric onto the wire itself is because wrapping this instead gives you more grip for things to slide into when you want to be sliding things into your wreath, like, you know, foliage or decorations or whatever. So now I'm just tidying up the bits where you can see the wire. I'm going to tie just a few little straps onto the wire to secure the garland onto it, and also, yeah, to conceal that wire because we don't want to see that wire. Wire? Do I keep saying the word wire? With this wreath, you can use scrap fabric that comes from anywhere. It could be old bed sheets, it could be tea towels, it could be rags, whatever. Or old clothes that you don't want anymore, rip them up, make a Christmas wreath out of them. Does Vinnie's really need another denim donation, or could you use yours to make a funky wreath? Think about it. But actually don't use denim because it will be really hard to tie the knots with the denim. Alright, back to it. We're tucking in some foliage here, and at this point I realised that the true budget-friendly wreath is actually just going outside and getting actual leaves and greenery. But who needs that when you can spend time making this and putting love into it, and you get that mixed textured look. Anyway, so I just selected some leaves from my garden and just threaded a few in there, not too many. Alright, so aluminium foil. We're making little balls. These are going to be berries. Pretend berries, of course. Don't eat them, you'll make yourself sick. And now I'm cutting up some maroon, crimsony, magenta-y, marony colour fabric. We're just wrapping it. It's very easy. Hot glue on the aluminium ball, and then wrapping it in that beautiful colour. The twist here is just to make sure that the glue really sticks to the fabric, and then I'm going to cut the tail off and then just apply a little bit of hot glue there. Be careful when you're handling it. I did hurt myself. Right, so we're just sticking those on. There you go, that's what that looks like. Oh, imagine this in denim though. This is my absolute favourite project of this whole video. So we're just rolling up a paper tube. This is actually a few pieces of paper, maybe 6 pieces. You can make your cone tube thingy in whatever size you like. It's up to you. So we're just rolling it there and then sticking it at the top. And in a minute I'm going to cut the bottom off because I want to make my first tree just a little one, a little baby one. And it didn't stand up properly because angles and maths are not a thing that I do well. So I just cut it until it stood properly. Okay, so then our trusty friends, the toilet paper rolls. Cutting these as shown, making little slits, and these are going to be the pine needles for our tree. So we're not cutting all the way up to the top, just almost to the top. And then a bead of hot glue, starting at the bottom, just sticking it around like shown. And guess what? You get to repeat the process again a bunch of times. It's really fun. Now you can make these leaves as wide as you like. I did realize as I was doing this that it was easier to attach them if you just bend the top section like you can see I've done. And then we stick it down. And you'll see because I've bent that top section, the leaves just stick out a little bit more instead of falling straight down. So it gives it a bit more dimension and texture. All right, so keep doing this all the way up to the top and you can see how that starts to look like a tree. When we get to the top, we're using really small pieces. Like so. So this will be the second last layer of these pieces. When you get to the very tippy top, just stick on individual strands and that will give you the most realistic top of the tree. Not that this is very realistic, I mean, but you know what I mean. It just looks better. Now, here's the second one that I've made and it's a bit taller, so there was a bit of a gap in the paper cone, so I'm just using another few sheets of paper, sticking that paper over the gap and closing it. One thing you could do is use brown craft paper and then you could leave the tree in the cardboard color like I've shown here, you can see that if I use brown paper underneath, that would look kind of cool, those brown craft looking trees. But we're actually going to paint ours. And I also could have painted mine before I stuck the toilet paper rolls on, but what are you going to do? So here are the two greens I'm using. Moorland and pale eucalypt were two colors I just had around. And we're going to start with this bigger tree, and I'm using the darker color first with a large brush that I can just push up underneath those cardboard pine needle sections. The large brush really helps to get underneath there because someone did not think to paint the paper underneath first. Definitely will be doing that next time I make these. Once that darker color is dry, I'm just using the lighter green to add a bit of dimension here so that from a distance the tree looks a bit more realistic and interesting. You can see here the difference between the two color tree on the left and the flat one color tree on the right. But yeah, super cute either way. Paint them however you like, style them however you like, make as many as you want. This final project is the most time consuming and the most difficult, although it is not that time consuming or difficult. So I'm making a paper mache reindeer, starting with aluminium foil and just shaping it into a duck shape. It's a reindeer, but it looks like a duck, right? There's not really much to say here. I'm just using the foil to make a shape. You want this to be pretty dense because it's going to be the structure and the base of your paper mache sculpture. All right, now the good part. We're cutting some strips for use with our paper mache glue. The easiest and cheapest glue is just 1 part flour, 1 part water. That's my favorite ratio. So here I'm just mixing that up, and we're going to start applying the paper strips directly onto that mold that we made with the aluminium foil. There's no particular rhyme or reason to the way that I'm doing this. I guess I'm just overlapping the strips for extra strength, making sure I'm not positioning too many in the same area, and just building the layers up. Here are my daughters helping me, as they always do. And I'm adding some details like little ears just by using smaller pieces of paper and then attaching them. Here's what it looked like after the first layer of paper mache was applied. I did go on and do another layer after this. I'll show you that later, but first, a few words from our sponsors.
Hi. We're making things for Christmas.
We're making things for Christmas, yay! Back to it.
Back to it.
Oakley dokley. So here is the reindeer after 2 coats of paper mache strips have dried and hardened. I'm using some of the general purpose interior filler that I mentioned before to just go over the reindeer. The surface was a bit too textured for me. I still want it to be quite rough looking, but just a little bit smoother than it is currently. So this is the first round of sanding, and I used a coarse grit, I think it was 80 grit or maybe 40 sandpaper, and you can see the difference that it makes to the texture here. It's just smoothing it out quite a bit, removing a lot of that paper. And then I went over it after that with some fine grit sandpaper. And here I've just attached some antlers. This is wire that was at the base of a artificial stem. And we're adding the little, this is actually quite hard to explain. but I'm using the fact that hot glue dries very quickly to my advantage here to make the little prongs, I guess, of the antlers. And you can see how I'm doing that. I'm basically creating a continuous stream of glue and letting it dry as I go. And when I'm finished, it does get a bit stringy towards the end, but that's okay. You can just pull it and then cut that string because it will have hardened enough for you to cut it. And this is what it looked like after I'd done all those little prongs. And then I'm just going over it with the filler and then again, just some paint. And after I'd done that, this is what it looked like. I also made here, in the same fashion, some sculptures of Mary and Joseph, a pregnant Mary because we're coming into Advent and it's a season of waiting for baby Jesus, so she's pregnant, and then Joseph is there. And I just did this the same way with the aluminium foil and then covered with the strips of paper mache, and exactly the same steps. Here is what the reindeer looked like when it was finished. This was with a coat of paint, and then I put some clear gloss Mod Podge over as a final coat to make it a little bit glossy and I guess more ceramic looking. This would be a really cool gift to give someone for Christmas, and if you wanted to, you could make it into a paperweight by wrapping a rock with aluminium foil and then doing the process on top of that, so it gives it a bit of heaviness there. And here are Mary and Joseph. I just painted them with very simple colours and a bit of gold, just for a minimal, neutral aesthetic. You could finish these sculptures in whatever way you like. Paint them, don't paint them. It's up to you. Sky's the limit, really. I also included some ideas for mixing and matching the projects that I've shown in this video. So pause on these screens and just have a read of these. They might inspire you to do something fun.